Good afternoon, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Rich again, back for your second video blog of the day for Tuesday, June 9th, 2015, around 3:19 in the afternoon, Belleville, Massachusetts. Mix of sun and clouds today, a little bit more humid, highs in the 70s. We could get some thunder showers later on in the day. Some news to report: Detroit Red Wings has hired a new coach. He is Jeff Blashill. He was the coach of the AHL affiliate for the past 3 years, so they promoted him to head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. So congratulations to him. And NBC Sports and NBCSN NHL lead play-by-play announcer Mike Emrick has won the Vin Scully Lifetime Achievement Award. So congratulations to Mike Emrick, also known as Doc. And that's about it on news. My next video blog subject is about the history of WBZ TV4 in Boston, Channel 4. It's the oldest television station in New England. It signed on the air on June 9th, 1948, as Boston's and New England's first commercial television station, and it's the first and only television station in the world to be built from the ground up. That's amazing. WBZ Radio started in the 1920s, and by the mid-1940s, television was starting to come around in New York City and other parts of the United States, mainly on the East Coast, and Boston was the next target. And WBZ Radio got a permit to build a television station, and they were going to build a great state-of-the-art studio on Soldiers Field Road in the Austin-Brighton section of Boston, right on the Charles River. It would be state-of-the-art for like television production and radio production for that day and age. And it took them several months to build the television station from ground up. They wanted to have it on in the spring of 1948, but the winter was very, very harsh. During the winter of 1947-48 was the worst winter they had in years. That's since been surpassed many, many times. And WBZ Radio was 10:30 a.m. and it was affiliated with NBC Radio. And when WBZ TV signed on the air on June 9th, 1948, it was affiliated with the NBC television network. Its original studios were in the Hotel Bradford, until they could move to the new studios with WBZ Radio, 10:30 on the AM dial on Soldiers Field Road in Boston. And WBZ was an innovator. It was the first television station in Boston to have the news on, like, Arch McDonald was the newsman. He was the newsman for many years. WBZ TV and radio were owned by Westinghouse Broadcasting, and for years, like WBZ, which was affiliated with NBC for about 46 years, they usually preempted a lot of NBC programmings, mainly in the daytime, to show their own syndicated shows, which was from the Group W broadcasting, which many of them were talk shows and other stuff, which I'll get to. And WBZ Television, when it signed on the air in 1948, carried the Red Sox games. From Fenway Park, they carried them for about 9 years. Calling them were Kirk Gowdy, and they used 3 cameras and stuff like that. And also WBZ showed a couple of classic television, local television children's shows. One was Bob Emery. He was a host on the radio in Boston since the 1920s. In 1948, he had a show on television. It was called Big Brother. It was focused on kids and stuff, and it lasted for close to 20 years. And also another classic children's show that was filmed at the WBZ studios for many years, beginning in 1956 through 1974, was Boomtown. It was a kids show It was hosted by a singing cowboy, Rex Trailer. Rex Trailer became a very iconic figure in Boston. And there was a push after he passed away to name him the official cowboy of Massachusetts and stuff. And NBC didn't really like WBZ preempting a lot of their programmings and stuff. Some of them during in the 50s and stuff didn't get shown on the air in the Boston market because there was only one other television station back then, which was WANC Channel 7, which was affiliated with CBS, and they didn't pick up any of the NBC preempted programming. But there was other television stations like Channel 56 WATO in 1953 that became like an ABC DuMont affiliate. And by 1955, WBZ and NBC were butting heads, and NBC threatened to take the affiliation from WBZ TV and radio of the NBC affiliate for like television and radio, because NBC and Westinghouse had like disagreements about stuff about like several other television stations that were affiliated with Westinghouse Broadcasting that carried NBC programming on the radio and television, but that got straightened out and stuff. And WBZ continued to be a leader in television for Boston. Its newscast over the years has been probably the best high rated and stuff. It started with Arch McDonald. Then for many years they had such news anchors as Tony Pepper and Jack Williams and Liz Walker and Randy Price and Joe Shortsleeve, Susanna Bates. They had Lisa Hughes, Jonathan Elias, Scott Wally, Paula Eben, Lisa Hughes, Kate Mello. The list goes on. And they have 3 newscasts today, WBZ TV. They have one from 4:30 to 7:30. No, 4:30 in the morning to 7 in the morning. Noontime, they have it from 5 to 6:30 at night, and from 11 to 11:35. So that's 4 newscasts per day, and they have a great staff of reporters and stuff over the years. Plus, they had some of the best weather department meteorologists ever, not on Boston television, but across the United States. It was led by Don Kett, who was the dean of Boston meteorology for over 30 years. He was the best meteorologist in Boston television history. He called hurricanes and stuff. He even called several of them, especially in 1954 when Hurricane Carol hit the tower of WBZ television. It fell down and temporarily knocked them off the air. And he also picked up the Great Blizzard of 1978, Don Ken and stuff. He was a great meteorologist and stuff. He retired in 1983, but he still did radio broadcasts for several radio stations across New England until his passing. Other great weatherman and weather ladies for WBZ over the years was Bruce Schlegler and Barry Burbank and Ed Carroll, Mish Michaels, Todd Gutner, and Melissa Bell, and Melissa Mack, and Danielle Niles, and Joe Joyce, and Pamela Gardner, and others did a lot of great stuff for WBZ, the weather department and stuff. And the sports department for WBZ was like some kind of the who's who. Back in the 70s, some of the sports anchors for WBZ made it to a national level, including Len Berman, who eventually worked for NBC Sports and stuff, and Dick Stockton, who eventually was the lead play-by-play announcer for the NBA on CBS, and he worked for CBS Sports for many years, and he worked for Fox Sports for so many years and stuff. And Bob Newmeyer, who called Bruins games on the radio and also does handicapping for NBC, and Steve Burton and Dan Roach, but probably the most beloved sportscaster of them all in Boston television history was Bob Lobel, who was the lead sports director of WBZ television for close to 30 years, from 1979 through 2008. He did the sports very good. He was probably the best sports anchor of them all. He was very good. His famous quote was saying, "The panic button," and went, "Why can't we get players like that?" It was one of the most disappointing days of my life when WBZ didn't renew the contract of Bob Lobel, because he was still at the top of his game, even though he was sliding a little bit. I think he could have been at WBZ many more years and stuff, but that's I did a video blog on Bob Lobel, so check it out when you get a chance. And also WBZ TV had like other programming as well besides showing the NBC shows. Back in the late 70s, they started a 5:30 newscast, which was the first in Boston television. It was called Live at 5:30 from WBZ TV, but this was like kind of focused more on of lifestyles and health and stuff like that. I think one of the principal anchors was like a entertainment and arts reporter, Joyce Kohalic, which she was on WBZ television for close to 30 years. A great entertainment reporter and stuff. Told you all the plays and all the rock groups and movies being made in Boston. She got to interview many of them. She was like cut in 2008 and stuff. Also, like WBZ TV had the 7:30 report, which was from January 1991 through September 1992. It was anchored by Randy Price. Originally, it was to cover the Gulf War, but the Gulf War was only a month until it ended, and then the 7:30 report turned into kind of an investigative report and kind of like a current affair type show, but that got, discontinued when WBZ carried Entertainment Tonight. And also WBZ had another like evening news program from 1977 through 1990 called Evening Magazine, which was actually in other markets PM Magazine by Group W, the parent company at the time of WBZ Television. And Evening Magazine was like a lifestyle show hosted by Barry Nolan and Sarah Edwards for so many years. Barry Nolan became famous for hosting hard copy and then extra and stuff on the national level. Sarah Edwards didn't make it national, but eventually she became the entertainment director for WHDH Channel 7 in Boston and stuff. And WBZ Channel 4, even though they were an NBC affiliate, from 1962 through 1966, they preempted The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson because WBZ was obligated to show a late-night talk show hosted by first Joey Bishop, and eventually Joey Bishop's replacement was Regis Philbin, so Westinghouse television stations were obligated to show that talk show when The Tonight Show was on. So The Tonight Show, for the first 4 years it was on the air, had to be shown in Boston on the old WHDH TV 5. I'll tell you a video blog about that some other time. And by the WBZ TV also had some other sports programming. They carried Celtics games from 1972 through 1985, which was first called by Len Berman and then Dick Stockton and then Gil Santos. The color man was Bob Cousy for these telecasts. And they had like about 35-40 games. They alternated between home and road and stuff, including some playoff games. But by 1985, the Celtics games disappeared from WBZ TV4 because NBC did not like them being preempted, especially in prime time and stuff, and WBZ had to obligate to NBC, even though the NBC did not like really the preemptions of a lot of their programming, especially daytime, because WBZ preempted a lot of daytime programming, including classic game shows. Most of those classic game shows that were preempted that were on the NBC television network were actually shown in Boston on WSBK TV 38, which eventually it's the sister station of WBZ now. And NBC really did not like that. I think the only game show I could remember never being preempted by WBZ television during this time was Wheel of Fortune. That's the only thing I recall. But all the other game shows and even some soap operas were preempted by WBZ, shown on the other like independent stations, mainly on SBK TV 38, somewhat to WLBI TV 56, and eventually WHLL TV 27, QTV 68, and WMFP channel 62 and stuff. But like WBZ from 1980 through 1993 had a talk show in the middle of the day from 12:30 to like 1:30. It was called People Are Talking. It was like a local version of the Phil Donahue show. Its most famous host was Tom Bergeron, who hosted the show for 10 years. Originally, Tom Bergeron hosted those Interstall thing called Wherefore Today during the early 1980s. By 1983, he became the host of People Are Talking, and it was a great talk show and Tom was great hosting it for 10 years. Eventually, the People Are Talking show folded into the WBZ News at Noontime when they expanded it to an hour. Like Tom Bergeron kind of had a segment from them for like that for the new news for about a year or so before he left there and stuff. But like it was a great talk show and stuff. And also Tom Bergeron hosted a weekend talk show called Wraparound, which was for teenagers, which was on WBZ television in Saturday afternoons and stuff like that. And like WBZ television was leading the way in ratings for Boston, for local news and local shows and stuff. But by 1994, Westinghouse was like all of their TV stations they owned all went to CBS stations, and WBZ signed a deal, had to go to CBS on January 2nd, 1995, which a lot of people got so mad because CBS at that time was the lowest rated network. They just lost the NFL to Fox, and the prime time was awful and stuff like that. And many cities dropped CBS, like especially in the cities that had NFC teams. They dropped, like CBS was on the VHF stations. Fox got those stations. CBS had to go to UHF stations, and many of those markets for that, and that had the NFC teams and stuff. Boston didn't have a NFC team. They had the AFC team, the New England Patriots, and that got a lot of people mad because the Patriots games moved to WHDH TV7 because NBC had the AFC contract at the time and stuff. A lot of people didn't like the move, but that beneficial for WBZ because eventually Westinghouse was bought by CBS in the late 1990s, and WBZ TV and WBZ Radio became CBS owned and operated stations, and to this day WBZ TV and radio are owned and operated by CBS. CBS has a great primetime lineup. It's number one and stuff like that. And also they have like the AFC package, especially the New England Patriots who won the Super Bowl. The president of CBS, Leslie Mules, the president of CBS, and Bob Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, are buddies and stuff. And the New England Patriots preseason games are on WBZ television and stuff. And they also have the Patriots All Access and stuff. And WBZ TV also is like SBK TV 38 or My TV 38 are owned by CBS Broadcasting, so both of them are owned and operated stations. Some of the syndicated programs over the years WBZ showed on the off-peak hours of when they weren't showing network stuff, were like the Mike Douglas show. They showed reruns of Hawaii Five-0 and The Love Boat and Magnum PI. They would show it at 3 p.m. preempting NBC programming, and like those like reruns of Hawaii Five-0, Love Boat, and Magnum TI got better ratings than the soap operas or the game shows on NBC, and that's pretty amazing and stuff. And eventually, even Hawaii Five-0 was shown at 12:35 on WBZ in like from September 1980 into David Letterman's show in 1982 premiered on NBC because the Tonight Show was cut from 90 minutes to 60 minutes in September 1980 at Johnny Carson's request, and afterwards was Tomorrow, hosted by Tom Schneider, but WBZ showed like Hawaii Five-0, and the Tomorrow show was not shown in Boston after September 1980 and stuff, so that's an interesting fact. And also WBZ showed reruns of the classic TV game show Match Game and Card Sharks in the early 1980s. I kind of remember that. Gene Rabin, who's actually lived at the time in Cape Cod, was the host of Match Game, and he did promos for Today's 4, promoting Hawaii Five-0 and Match Game weekdays and stuff like that. And also they showed the People's Court, WBZ, back in the 80s, and they showed the first run syndicated version of Family Feud and stuff in the 90s. They showed they acquired Entertainment Tonight, and that became actually a CBS show. And now the syndicated programmings for WBZ are from the CBS owned and operated, like Dr. Phil and Rachel Ray and Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy and stuff like that. So WBZ TV and radio, TV, Channel 4 is probably the best television station in Boston, highest rated television station in Boston. For many years, they had WBZ TV as their TV4 as their branding and stuff, but by the late 1990s, they branded the name like the news programming, News 4 New England, which that got a lot of longtime fans mad. Then they said WBZ4, return that. Then from 2004 to 2007, they were called CBS 4 News. And it was rumors that they were going to eliminate the branding of Channel 4. They had like a proposal, CBS Boston, which would have got a lot of fans mad. Then a lot of fans were outraged, so they became WBZ Television. Now it's back to WBZ Channel 4, which is right. That's great for that still being called WBZ TV4. And WBZ 4.2 shows Decades, the new digital over-the-air network, which is kind of a hybrid history channel / like classic TV channel and stuff. It's pretty good. And that's really about it on WBZ Television Boston. Happy 67th birthday, WBZ Television. And probably in the near future, I'm definitely going to do a blog of the history of the WBZ Radio 1030 AM. That's about it on this video blog. Be back with the third and final video blog of the night, which will be about WBZ morning weekday meteorologist Danielle Niles on my personality profile. Have a good day, everybody. Bye now.